Where are you joining us from? Are you at a restaurant right now?
Yeah, I just on the way from rehearsal back home, I had to stop because I was starving. So I just grabbed a small meal and I'm, you know, empowered enough to talk to you now.
Hey everyone, this is Joe from Loudwire. Joining me today on this episode of How I Learned to Scream. He's got the new album from Behemoth coming out, Opus Contra Naturum. I'm talking about Nergal.
I am nothing without him. Nothing is. I am no.
So let's take it all the way back to when you were a kid and listening to a lot of heavy metal. What was the first sort of extreme metal vocal that you ever heard in your life?
I think it was Kronos who really made me want to scream. And he was a screamer, but like he was a vocalist, but also it's like a combination of scream and singing because his screaming technique kind of include the melody in it as well.
So now, when was the first time you actually attempted any sort of harsh vocal yourself? What age were you?
Yeah, I was a kid. I got my first guitar, electric guitar, with a distortion when I was 7 or 8. So like yeah, I immediately started a band. So I immediately started to using my throat and using my vocal cords to express my version of heavy metal as I see it today.
Do you remember the
Yeah.
first time you tried to do some of those vocals, like how it felt for your voice?
I must say, like throughout most of my career, I wasn't really aware of what's happening. The band has been over 30 years now, but trust me, in the very early days and like first tours and even into like 2000 tours, I would I had a tendency to kill my voice every now and then, especially when I was forcing my voice. I remember tours for Apostasy, just wow, it was a lot of effort that it would take me to pull it off. It would transform from when I was a kid, I was just screaming, but it was like a kid scream, okay? And it wasn't really a growling or like attempt to growl because I didn't know what growling was back then. It was
Sure.
just some sort of, yeah, I would listen to Creator and I would just try to imitate that, experiment, and my vocals would evolve.
You started with kind of the more black metal rasp because, you formed Behemoth in
Yeah,
1991. And at that time, you had a little bit of the mid to late 80s death metal. You had Death, Morbid Angel, Obituary. But
yeah,
then you also
yeah,
had Bathory, Dark Throne, Mayhem. And it seemed like you gravitated more
yeah,
towards the black metal stuff. So what was your
yeah.
impression of first hearing those higher pitch, kind of raspy black metal vocals?
Like black and death metal back then, it was very mixed up to me. So I would like equally enjoy Morbid Angel as I enjoyed Sama. So the first demo, I was 16 or 15 when I recorded it. I was just doing like this low guttural, really deep vocals, or trying to do them. And then the next demo, which was what, a year later or something, I just discovered A Place on the Northern Sky and Samael Worship Him and like Samael demos and like more raw and primitive stuff. And I just go towards that direction. So you can hear this crispy, like raw screaming, not screaming, like this kind of stuff. Today like the versatility of my vocals are like all over the place. But back then I really looked up to Vorfalak from Samael. Still think he's one of the best black metal vocalists ever existed. And of course, on the first Behemoth album, Storming
Sure,
Near the
sure.
Baltic, I was just fucking screaming my balls out. And I remember I would do the whole record within one tops 2 days. When you hear the new album, you'll be like, oh shit, his vocal is very sharp on every song because I take breaks. I do, let's say, Monday session, and then I take a whole week off
Hmm.
because I can afford it. Week off, and then come back next Monday or even Friday, and my vocal is like my juices are back in my
Yeah,
throat. You
yeah.
know what I mean? I try not to like overuse and abuse my vocal cords in the meantime. I do warm ups these days, which really helps me out. And I think the whole game changed when it comes to me that I hardly ever kill my voice these days. Let's say last 5-8 years, it's when I started using ear system. So when I like perfectly hear my voice in ears, I'm in control of everything, So I might even perform with a cold or like fever or whatever, Like my voice could be also like stretched and kind of used and not in a perfect shape. I still know how to approach it when I clearly can hear every single note and every single word. I can really maintain that because of ears. So 90s, I would start with guttural voice, then more screamy voice, and then I would just go. I would just experiment. And you can, if you run through through Behemoth albums, you can clearly hear, like
Oh yeah.
my ambitions and my inspirations, and it would just fluctuate. It would just go like all over the place. Back then, I would also like do a lot of overdubbing. So I would just use like do the main vocals and then do like the main, which is the most natural for me, scream or growl. So it's like I'd say my regular natural is what you hear these days. But back then, I would just force and add another one underneath, or maybe two, like really. I would like even do this. Back then, when I would record those records, I would never go like, okay, let's do this kind of vocal and then different range at the same time. No, I would just run through the record with main stuff. Then I would dedicate a certain sessions to the really low ones, so they wouldn't be mixed up with, because what fucks up your voice is like you try to sing and then you try to scream and then you go back to singing and then you do something else. Hats off for guys like, I don't know, Matt from Trivium that can do both, singing and be like spot on, just catching all the notes, perfect, and then screaming. And I'm like, wow. So for me, like it makes a problem for me to mix up like different ranges, So I'd rather just focus on one range and, so my throat gets adopted to that. And then eventually just experiment with other ranges.
But now going back to when you were younger, where were you practicing these vocals? Was it like in your bedroom, at home? What did your parents think?
I never practice my vocals. I never do it up until like I've never done that. So that may be disappointing for some. I never do it.
In rehearsals, or that's it?
Even rehearsals, I never sing. Yeah. I just,
to this day?
You know what makes, like if you go now on my social media, you can hear what I do. Is I'm talking the lyrics. I just use my regular voice. So my apparatus gets you, like I get the opposite.
You're getting in sync with doing both
exactly roles. That's it. And then what does the trick to me is the adrenaline and the environment. So for me, the screaming environment is when I make magic confronting with the audience, or when I'm in a studio and I set up so-called altar or something. I never go into the studio that looks like a lab and I like have full lights on and shit like that. No, I get into the mood.
So whenever you're doing vocals, it's all coming from a very specific source of inspiration, never doing it just for the sake of doing it. Now, what about enunciation? This seems like this is something that is very important to you in Behemoth. You take your lyrics and your message quite seriously, as do many of the fans. Are there any like vowel combinations, vowel consonant combinations, or anything like that that give you difficulty when you're writing the lyrics in terms of getting that certain expression out?
When I started working on lyrics, it's just a separate thing, and then music is a separate thing, and then I just try to combine it. Sometimes this can kind of inspire the riff. Sometimes riff inspire the vocals. Mostly they're just being created separately. Nowadays, I kind of know how to put vocals, how to place them within riffs and music, and how to work it out so it's so it makes the right impact when performing it later live. If I can pull something off, I'll just ask Orion to help me out. So they do the backing vocals. So sometimes when I do overdubs and let's say there's a verse and it goes like this in the recording and it goes like that, and then here, I might ask him, can you please sing that line here? So I just boom, have a breath, boom. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you do some of like, you'll take some lines that are usually more kind of brutal and intent, and you'll do a little bit of the sing shouting type ending to trail upward live a lot.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
Talk about some pre-show and post-show do's and don'ts. Is there anything that you must do to maintain your voice before and after a show, or is there anything that you absolutely should not do?
It's professional warm-ups, you know. I even made my guys in the band doing that. I do it both me and that man and Behemoth. I started with me and that man, I believe, and then I thought, holy shit, you know, why I never do it with Behemoth. So I kind of brought it to Behemoth, and the guys do that too. They like it, you know, and they told me, hey, even though we're doing like only like a little bit of vocals, you know, they feel they're more in control of their voice.
Did you start that warm up with being that man because you had to do more
Yeah,
traditional singing instead of the extreme
yeah,
metal? Okay.
yeah. But then again, you know, like screaming, talking, singing, it's all the same. This is something you have to realize. You know, when you're
Hmm.
singing with a natural voice, it's your natural voice. You basically do that talking. You're just adding notes there, you know, and that's it. You know, it's the same.
Hmm.
Breathing and stuff. You know, it's just worth. It's just worth. So I advise everyone do that. Even if you just, I don't know, you're a coach and you know, before the speech, like you're supposed to do 2 hour speech. Do it.
Hmm.
Does miracles. What I never do, I never eat much right before the show, and it's not just for vocals; it's for everything, you know. But having full stomach, it will, yeah. I think it just lowers the quality of your performance. It's breathing, it's everything, you know.
Hmm.
I'm never like it's never empty stomach. So sometimes, you know, even before I go on stage, I'm gonna have a bite of banana because it's energy and it's not heavy. Okay, so I'm gonna have 2 3 bites. Okay, it gives you energy.
Hmm.
It's carbons. It's good stuff. You can't go wrong with banana. It's an amazing natural energizer. So that's what I do. And I also use this thing that actually Rob Flynn kind of took it from me because we shared the same TM at some point, and TM was in charge of that, you know. So I
Hmm.
taught my TM, ex TM, to make this tea for me, and it's a boiled like hot water. I throw some ginger there, I throw some honey, and I squeeze lemons,
Hmm.
and I just love it. It does the trick, you know. And Rob kind of took after me, and he loves it too. So maybe use that, you know. Maybe it works for you as well.
Well, Nergal, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of How I Learned to Scream. The new Behemoth album, Opus Contra Naturam, coming out. Behemoth are going to be killing it on the road. I'm sure it's going to be a long tour cycle. Nergal, thanks again.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Cheers.